I'll now hand over to Michelle, who will take you through today's topic, Blue Monday, and how to improve employee wellbeing.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you to everyone who's joined the webinar today. So after what we've all probably had as quite an indulgent break over Christmas, it can be really hard getting back into the swing of things, and I think that's something we can all register with. From potentially having 2 weeks off at a time which is quite quiet, compared to all the other times of the year when you take holidays, Christmas is usually in most areas the one time that you can guarantee that it will be quiet because most other people are off. So people really truly get that break, and it is certainly appreciated. But that makes it all the more harder for coming back into work on that first day after the Christmas break. Things like just setting the alarm to get early, going back to enduring that rush hour traffic, and then things like figuring out what you're going to cook for dinner on a Tuesday night because you've decided to do veganuary, or you're doing dry January, and alcohol that you'd normally have at the end of the week you're not having. A lot of things change in January, and people try and change for the better to make a better version of themselves, start a new year afresh, but that can make things even more difficult. The things that we're going to talk about today is talking about what exactly Blue Monday is and why it impacts people, and why people's moods are so generally adversely affected in January. But what can you do about it as an employer? How do you improve wellbeing at work for Blue Monday, for January, and throughout the rest of the year? Talking a bit about how to support employees who are suffering from mental health problems, and the benefits that you as a business can get from supporting and improving your employee wellbeing, and then an overview of how Moorepay can support you. So moving on to what is Blue Monday, I am sure we've all heard this term in many types of publications in the run-up to today. And essentially, today is the third Monday in January, and this is the day that is dubbed Blue Monday. It was a phrase that was actually originally publicised in 2005 as part of a press release and campaign by a holiday company. So you can see where it came from. January is generally the biggest time of the year when people look to book their summer holidays as something to focus on to get them through the darker month of January. But it's really grown since then and has become quite a coined phrase. And it's allegedly the most depressing day of the year. Contributing factors of that are the weather. We've still got kind of short days, long, dark nights and mornings. People often suffer more with debt in January because of what they have paid out at Christmas. It is usually the one time of year where it's very exciting to get paid early in December, but that generally leads for most people to a longer month in January, and you're counting down the days to payday. There feels a lull after all the sparkle and excitement in the run-up to Christmas. There's also a chance that we've already started to fail in our New Year's resolutions, so whether that was to go vegan for the month or to give up alcohol or to be more fit and attend the gym more by the third Monday, there's a chance that people have stopped doing those and they feel quite disappointed in themselves for it. There seems to be general low motivation levels and the feeling that people want to take action but aren't quite sure what to do. A recent survey of Moorepay of over 600 people, which was conducted in January 2019, found that 35% of employees describe themselves as just feeling kind of average about being back at work after Christmas. But more importantly than that, another 35% actually admitted that they felt pretty miserable about the whole suggestion. There is debate on whether Blue Monday is an actual thing and whether there's truth in it and relevance. And one of the pitfalls of Blue Monday is that it can kind of trivialise the way that people feel in general about their mental health and well-being, to suggest that it's just one day a month or one day in a year in particular that's relevant. And whilst we're not here to decide whether that debate or true is not, I think most of us can relate to this. And it's thinking about how you as a business can turn this into something to do with your employees and how you can help them, particularly as it's something that they've probably all heard about. So the relevance then of Blue Monday and the impact, it's something that your employees will likely latch onto. And the key to all of this is pulling it together to talk about well-being. There is recognition that some months are generally harder than others. And I think that's the thing. It's more about getting a hook for your employees and using days like today to promote well-being in general. Blue Monday gives us an opportunity as a business to talk something that most people can relate to, and it's about getting wellbeing on the agenda. Wellbeing in the workplace, we describe it as every employer depends on having healthy and productive employees. Valued and supported staff are far more likely to deliver the best outcomes for your business. And if you want to attract and retain committed employees, then in prioritising the wellbeing of your staff, it needs to be something that's at the core of your organisation. How we link this then to wellbeing in general. It's quite a complex area, and if you look on LinkedIn, you'll find that probably every second or third article is to do with employee wellbeing. And today, if you look, there will be lots of hashtags around Blue Monday, and sometimes it's quite overwhelming as a business, especially in SMB, to figure out what are the key points of wellbeing, how can I help my employees, and what are the benefits to them and to me of doing so. There is a bit of a danger sometimes that employees just focus on one of those areas, and there's a tendency to focus on mental health. And whilst we in no way underestimate how important mental health is, it's important that we think about all the different elements of well-being and how these are impacted. So the model that you see in front of you is actually a model from the CIPD, and I think it's really important to kind of look at a model like this and try and give it some context. I think it's also important to say that the boundaries between work and home life have certainly become blurred in a way that they never have done before. And as employers, we need to acknowledge the impact that this has had. So most people are contactable 24/7. And whilst that brings great advantages, from a work and life balance, that can also bring some severe disadvantages. So the 7 interrelated domains of employee wellbeing then. The first one is around health. And health is not just made up of physical health, it's also around mental health and physical safety. And employees expect to come to work and feel safe, well, and healthy. There's an area of thinking about good work, a feeling of fulfillment for individuals, ensuring that the work they have is challenging, but in a way that's rewarding, structured, and realistic. Values and principles looks at areas such as diversity, inclusion, dignity at work, trust in the leadership, and this is where you really get a benefit for your employees. If they feel that the business they work for shares the same values and principles as they do, it's going to be a much more productive relationship. Collective and social thinks about positive relationships at work. We all spend a lot of time at work, and we spend a lot of time with the people who we work with. And we should never underestimate how important it is to have positive relationships in work, but also allowing employees to feel that they have a voice and they are listened to. Personal growth is about allowing individuals to reach their potential. And this isn't necessarily moving straight up the career ladder. People have different types of objectives for their personal growth. And it's about creating an environment where we understand that and where possible can feed into that. The last 2 areas are something that the CIPD have actually only recently just introduced into the model, but are just as important as well. The first one is around good lifestyle choices, and choices employees make outside of work can impact how they perform and behave at work. So things like increase in physical activity and improvements in healthy eating do have a positive impact on an individual, and employers can benefit from that. And then the final one, and a really key one that is something that's kind of very close to our hearts at Moorepay as a payroll company, is around financial wellbeing. Is a topic that is gaining huge traction. It's first of all about having a fair reward and benefit structure within your own organisation, but it goes beyond that in terms of employees having access to support, guidance and help when it comes to financial wellbeing. We live in a world that seems to be fueled by social media influences at the moment, and the generations that are being brought up today are witnessing these Insta lifestyles where there's perfect selfies, there's perfect holidays, it's quite materialistic, and young people can be fooled into thinking that that is the only way to happiness, and that can have a severe impact on their financial well-being if people are leaving university, getting their first job, and then stretching themselves beyond their means to try and keep up with what they think a healthy lifestyle looks like. And I think we as employers have to recognise the impact that this is having, and think about how we support, educate, and guide our employees. In general, though, these are just some statistics about why it is important for a business and why you should care. Stress and poor mental health. Now, this is an estimated figure, and it's very difficult to put an exact science behind this, but it is estimated from the Minds Workplace Wellbeing Index that it's costing businesses around £34 billion a year in absence, productivity, and turnover. 1 in 6 employed people in the UK suffer with some mental health issues, and about 15.8 million days of sickness absence is attributed to mental health issues. Again, this figure actually could be grossly underestimated, because a lot of the time people will not state the true reason for their absence. In the survey that they conducted, 1 in 10 people related their current mental health as poor or very poor, and 26% of that 1 in 10 actually said that mental health problems were caused by work. 40% of the 1 in 10 had time off because of that mental health problems, and 1 in 4 employees in the survey said that they would openly talk to their manager. So that means 3 in 4 employees are not willing to talk to their managers. And we are making progress. We are moving forward. We talk about time to change and time to talk, but there's still a long way to go. And it's about thinking about what small impacts that you as businesses can have with your employees. When talking about good mental health, then, it is defined by the World Health Organization as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stress of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So this stretches beyond just the workplace. I think we can all recognise that we don't wake up every morning feeling like this, and there are peaks and troughs in all our lives. But where the troughs are more continuous, this really does start to affect an individual, and therefore impacts their ability to reach their potential at work, and therefore starts impacting you. So this is why talking about positive mental health in a wider sense is so important. And it's encouraging you to think about what you can do in your own organisation to help promote that type of environment. If you just think about work-related mental health problems, they are the most obvious area that you have control over. And just at a high level, some of the causes of work-related mental health problems are high-pressured environments, unmanageable workloads, people feeling they have a lack of control over their own work, negative relationships, and this links into the culture that you have in your organisation, poor communication, and whether that is up the chain or down the chain, communication goes 2 ways. And then long working hours. This is something that is gaining more relevance recently, and employers understanding the benefits that a work-life balance for an employee can bring to them, and trying to steer away from long working hours, but they can have a severe negative impact on mental health problems. It's then thinking about what you can do to combat some of these and how you help and work to promote positive mental health in relation to Blue Monday, and using that as a hook and a reason to talk about it, but then talking to your staff that you are just not focusing on one day, and you think everyone might feel a bit blue today, but they're going to come into work tomorrow feeling absolutely fantastic. It's telling your employees that it is something that you want to promote, and promote positive mental health within your workplace. Promoting positive mental health, though, it's about trying to use a management style that allows your employees to feel autonomous while ensuring they feel supported. And this will be very, very different for each organisation. Is something that you can only impact yourself. But thinking about the type of work that you give to your employees, where can you give them autonomy? Where can you give them some freedom, but while still making sure that the work is controlled and supported? A lot of the time, it's best to hear it from the employees, whether you have an employee forum, you ask their feedback in a survey. It's really key to understanding how they feel they want to perform their own tasks. Reward and recognition doesn't have to cost the earth. There are great ways that you can reward your staff, whether it be through vouchers or the types of benefits you offer, but sometimes just a general appreciation of an employee's efforts and contribution and a thank you can really go a long way. And that really does promote a positive environment. Going back to the work, it's about ensuring it's organised efficiently, effectively, and people understand their roles. It may seem like it is something that's quite obvious, and even if it's obvious to you as an employer or as a manager, it can be quite unnerving for an employee if they're not quite sure of the boundaries of their roles. We all have job descriptions that inevitably change over time because things get taken away, things get added on. That is the nature of work. But regularly ensuring that we have honest communication with our employees and they fully understand what's expected of them makes a huge difference. Being realistic about workloads and deadlines is very key as well. There's always going to be deadlines that we have to work to, but again, being open and honest. And the key thing is really making sure the support's there for when they need it. And the best way to do this is about being proactive, anticipating stressful periods. So whether that is you realising and recognising that January is a pretty tough month for everyone and thinking about initiatives that you can put in place to support your employees during January, or whether it's your year-end period approaching. Is it a regular thing that as year-end approaches, it's all hands on deck, it's very busy? Can work be reorganised, redistributed? Can you think about extra resource? Think about how you can anticipate and proactively help rather than just responding. And then moving on in general to talking about supporting employees. I've already mentioned about establishing open and honest communication with employees. And if you are starting to see that someone is struggling with mental health, early intervention is the best way to prevent problems from escalating. Whether that's you thinking about having mental health first aiders, and there are numerous courses that you can take across the country to get some of your staff trained as mental health first aiders. And our anticipation is that these will become just as important as physical first aiders. Within Moorepay ourselves, we've recently trained 2 of our staff to be mental health first aiders through St John's Ambulance, and they run open surgeries once a week with employees where they can come and talk to them about anything in confidence. And we're really seeing a benefit from that already and an uptake of this approach. It's important to focus on the person, not the problem. Don't go into talking to an employee about mental health feeling that you can or have to solve all their problems. A lot of the time it's about focusing on their person and supporting them. Taking a positive approach to them and not looking at the negatives in the situation, but also asking them what support they think they may need. They are probably in a better position to tell you, and there's lots of options out there. As well as us having the mental health first aid trained people in Moorepay, we also work alongside a organisation called Able Futures, which is a free government funded body who are about helping people with serious mental health problems stay in work whilst they are dealing with them. And they can give them access to trained psychologists and consultants and counselling sessions, which will really help them stay in work whilst they're working through their issues. And it's about working together to find a solution, seeking advice from your peers, using occupational health wherever is needed, and understanding that you don't have to be a medical expert. We can ask people for help with that. And where you have a HR team involving them. It's particularly important that when you do recognise a mental health issue, that you react to it and don't ignore it, because it will escalate. And it's putting those things in place in the culture to make them work. And then kind of coming on to the value of employee wellbeing to you as an organisation. It isn't just all about the employee. There will be a great deal of benefits for managers and businesses if employees feel engaged and happy. And the 4 that we've called out here are ones that hopefully you'll all kind of recognise and realise that these are crucial to the success of your business. The first one is around reducing staff turnover. There's always a healthy part of attrition for the business. It keeps things fresh and keeps things moving, but too much of it tips the balance. And what you want to do is create a stable and strong environment where top talent in the marketplace want to join your organisation and they want to stay. Reducing sickness absence, better wellbeing directly impacts sickness absence, which obviously is going to have a positive impact. And proactive initiatives to help stop absences from occurring in the first place. But having the right processes and policies will help minimise the impact should an absence ever occur. It's also around improved staff performance. There's countless research around the direct correlation between a satisfied and engaged workforce and improved performance. And this is where, as a business, you can see real return on investment and you can start to measure and quantify the impact. It will also help you in reducing complaints and grievances. Positive wellbeing in a positive work environment leads to healthy relationships within the workplace, which should in turn reduce complaints and grievances and allow you to focus on what your business needs and what it needs to do. In terms of Moorepay then, and how we can support you as a business around mental health wellbeing, not just on Blue Monday, but in general, we provide HR support services, which is around advice and consultancy, policies and documentation. We also run manager training, which is anything from dealing with sickness absence to mental health for managers support training. If things do get to tribunal, we run right through to the tribunal support and advocacy side, but our focus is really on making sure that situations don't escalate to that and being proactive up front. We also offer a partnership with employee benefits and an employee assistance programme where employees gain access to a 24/7 confidential helpline that can help them in all aspects of their life, not just work, things that may be happening outside of work that's impacting how they feel. And we also partner with an occupational health provider to help give that specialist information. And then from a software point of view, we have software functionality that allows performance reviews to be input and recorded through the software, absence management monitoring, best practice templates, and then advanced reporting and analytics.
Brilliant, thank you, Michelle. In relation to the employee benefits that we do offer, I will let you know that we have actually got a live product demo taking place on Thursday at 2 o'clock, which will give you an overview of the cloud-based platform and the employee benefits that are available. And there'll also be a live Q&A. So I will, when I send you the slides and a copy of the recording, I'll include a link for you to register for this product demo that's taking place with my colleague Daniel Cookson on Thursday as well. So moving on to the questions, please continue to drop any questions that you may have into the questions box. We have already received a number of questions through, so we'll start with the first one, which is when looking at Blue Monday and employee wellbeing, how does this fit into an overall wellbeing strategy?
I think it is about using topics that are in the media and recognition that is this something that people will relate to focus on wellbeing as a whole. You can't just focus on one day and think if I bring in a load of pizzas on Blue Monday to cheer people up that will make a difference. That may help, and it is a great thing to do, and sometimes pick-me-ups are brilliant, but use it as a hook to talk about your overall wellbeing strategy. Think about the whole year and different initiatives that you can put in place. And this can be, like I said, from mental health first aiders to writing an actual wellbeing policy and strategy. A really good way to do this is not just to make it a management exercise. When thinking about where you want to focus as a wellbeing on a wellbeing strategy, it's really useful to potentially get a group of employees together in a forum to decide what the main focuses should be for the overall strategy and the different initiatives that you'll work on for the year. But throughout the year, there will be many times where there are initiatives like Blue Monday that will come up, or mental health focus week. Use them as a hook to talk about it. The more you can talk about it, the better it is, and the more that you can involve people in designing and implementing the overall strategy, the better the buy-in will be.
Brilliant, thank you, Michelle. The next question is around absence. I've seen a spike in absence this month. What can I do to address this?
I think you have to start off by treating it like you would do any absence and looking at the reasons for it. Now, there is a chance that if somebody is absent for mental health reasons and you're seeing it spike in January, they may actually be saying it is to do with something else. But if you're seeing a pattern, whether it's short-term absence or long-term absence, where you suspect that it is related to mental health issues and potentially related to some issues that there are in January, then treat it as you would do with any other mental health issue. And remember that mental health issues are always potential disability. It's a potential disability, so you've got to tread carefully. It's seeking the right advice from HR, understanding how to tackle it. It is different to just tackling a normal absence for repeated unrelated. It is more about a long-term process, understanding what the triggers are, what the causes are, and how you can support them and get them to return to work, which is your aim. Each situation will be different, but it's certainly not a case of you can't, if it is to do with mental health, that you can't do anything about it. It's just a bit of a different approach in terms of process, and it is getting that specialist advice that will really help.
Thank you, Michelle. I think we've got time for one more question. So for the last question, it is, what can my business do to support employees' financial wellbeing? I think touching on what you mentioned in relation to the 7 elements of wellbeing.
I think this is going to gain more and more importance. I think, again, talking about financial wellbeing and recognising the impact that this can have on people, the most basic thing you can do is make sure that you've got a fair reward and recognition package in place, and looking at what that is, whether it's the types of benefits that you can have. You might be able to have some salary sacrifice schemes, buy and sell of holidays, so that means that people can get more holidays in the year. There might be making sure that you've got access to health cash plans and help them in those practical kind of financial ways. But the real key to helping individuals is to help them with advice and guidance. And there are many tools that you can use within our own Moorepay system. We have links to life skills, which is information from the government on budgeting and how to financially help people. Things may change as the world progresses. We are still in a very traditional situation where we're in a world where you can buy anything 24/7. You can wake up unable to sleep at 3 a.m. and order something from Amazon to arrive the day after. But we still pay in a very traditional way, and this has been really felt this month in that it's usually just once a month and once every 4 weeks. Things like that may change in the future and pay may become more flexible, but until such time as that gains traction, it is about, first of all, practical help that you can give them in terms of your own reward and recognition scheme, and then looking at where you can point them in terms of financial advice and well-being. This can also be achieved through having an employee assistance programme, because they are able to offer financial and debt advice from a specialist person.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And before we close off the webinar, I will quickly make you aware of some additional content that you can access from Moorepay. Our monthly employment law and HR legislation guides are located in the resources section of the website, and these do actually include a key trends section where we do look at things like employee wellbeing. And if you follow us on any of our social sites, we publish all of our new blogs and guides on there, so you'll see them flash up on your newsfeed. As I said, I'll send a recording and also the slides over to you this afternoon, and I'll also include a link to the employee benefits demo that's taking place on Thursday. I hope you found the webinar useful this morning. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Michelle for hosting the webinar today and for answering your questions. We'll close the webinar off now, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye.